All right, and we are recording this call. Just so everybody knows, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your video. Let's get started with an icebreaker. All right, so we were talking about this a little bit before with Jay. He said his favorite Winter Olympic sport is downhill skiing. I want to know what the rest of you guys think. I think I'm going to go with curling, believe it or not, from where I'm from in Duluth, kind of close to Duluth, Minnesota. Their team has actually made it like 5 different times, 5 years in a row. So it's led by John Schuster, and they qualified at the trials in Omaha this year. So they're going to try to defend their gold. All right, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing. Oh, that's a brutal event as well. Pick your poison there. Fun fact, we actually do VO2 max testing at Children's Mercy. Dr. Shook does that in his exercise physiology related research. And cross-country skiers have the highest VO2 maxes in the world. Ski jumping, oof, man, yeah, there's a lot of different skiing events. That's another grueling one. Speed skating, biathlon. Yeah, that's where you're skiing and then shooting at targets. Some more speed skating, Olympic hockey. Oh yeah, downhill skiing, curling, speed skating, snowboarding, and bobsled. Yeah, there we got a bobsledder. Cool. All right. And I was thinking about this the other day. I was just thinking about like how I've kind of progressed from high school sports to college, and now what my current interests are in sports and activities and the way I move. I want to know if you guys, your activity preferences have changed over time, or the sports that you play. And if you realize in the background here, this is actually a community event that we went to this summer. And off to the right of the screen is a familiar face. I don't know if Robin's ever been involved in football, but on that day in particular, he was doing some football drills. So, all right, so most of you guys are saying yes, your preferences have changed, and a couple people have stuck with what they know.
I have the I had the what's the guy on Married with Children? Al Bundy. I have the Al Bundy record, which is me and Al Bundy's both scored 5 touchdowns in one game once.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's awesome. What age?
High school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Nashville Plainfield. We crushed them.
Heck yeah. We're learning new things about everybody today. Well, let's keep it going. I don't know if Adrian's on the call yet. Let's see. I don't think so, but I thought I would spotlight him. This was on the same day. This is, I guess, I assume new activity that he picked up, but he was able to flip the tire with all the kids and people that were participating that day. So we want to know what factors have impacted your changes in physical activity preferences and habits since you've grown up in life. If you've had changes in your preference and habits for movement. And you can be as vague about this as you'd like. You can be as detailed as you'd like. I'm just always curious about these things. Achilles tendon fear, yes. Honestly, I feel where you're coming from. They're bad injuries that can tend to stick with the rest of your life, whether it's back to 100% health or not. Age, kids, access to it. You know, it's a lot of what we talk about in this group. Access to sports later in life for a variety of ages. Kids definitely take up a lot of time when you get to that point. Same thing for another person, same thing. Options, hard to find adult rec leagues, time availability. You can run whenever you have time. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people get into, sports and aerobic sports like that. Easier to access, easier to fit it in. Will I get hurt? Another Achilles related comment. Time, responsibility, time commitments. Yeah. And burnout. Yeah. Sometimes you play a sport your entire life and you don't want to do it quite anymore and you got to find something else or move on from it. Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, Bryce. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Robin Shook. I'm the director of Weighing In, and Weighing In is the backbone organization for the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. This is the sports sector meeting. Sports sector is one of 10 sectors that are housed within the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. And one of the two co-leads for the sports sector is Bill Brandmeier. Bill, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to kick the year off with a sports sector meeting, and excited to hear from each one of you your thoughts on how we can use sports to help increase physical activity in Kansas City, knowing that there are a lot of people out there that need just a little bit of motivation, a little bit of help accessing a little bit of encouragement to get out there and get active.
Yeah, thanks. The other co-lead we saw a photo of a couple slides ago, Adrian Roberson from KC United over in Kansas City, Kansas. Hopefully he's able to hop on today, but if not, he sends his warm regards. The other person that you saw at the top was Bryce Miller. Bryce is one of our research assistants, and he's been instrumental in all the work that has happened with the sports sector up to this point. I have the purpose of today's meeting is really kind of to set the stage for the next phase of this initiative. So we spent a good portion of 2021 developing strategies and tactics for the sports sector. And now we are officially to the implementation phase. So now we can actually start trying to accomplish some of the things that we spent all of 2021 talking about as barriers and opportunities within the sports sector. So we're going to spend just a few more minutes today talking about sports sector as a whole, but the rest of the time we are going to actually divide into implementation groups, and these groups, well, I'll talk just a little bit more about what they are later. Since it's a relatively small group at this point, maybe we can just go around and do introductions for the rest of us, just so we all know who we are. And so maybe I'll call on David. David, do you want to introduce yourself, and then where you work? And then let's see, we did favorite. Also tell us your favorite pro sports team, and then you can call on someone else.
All right. My name is David Hayden. I work at KSHB TV, and Bill Brandmeier invited me to join these calls, and this is the first one I've been able to make, so I'm glad to be here. My favorite sports team today is the Chiefs, so we'll go with that. Glad to try to get caught up on what you guys have been doing. And the next person on my screen is Bryce. So is he the right person to defer to here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, David. Good to have you. I'm Bryce. I work in the Weighing In team, like Robin said. My favorite sports team, you guys don't want to hear it, but it would be an interesting Super Bowl, is the Packers. So Chiefs are my second favorite team. So hopefully they can both get through the NFC and AFC and get to that title game. And I'm going to pass it on to Greg. Good to see you, Greg.
Good to see you all again today. So my name is Greg Canty. I'm the medical director of the sports medicine program at Children's Mercy. And my favorite pro sports team, I grew up in Kentucky, so but I got to adopt someone since there was no pro sports in Kentucky at the time. Kentucky basketball, they got paid more than most pro athletes. That's another story. So I'll go with the Chiefs. I've been in Kansas City long enough, and I have a 12-year-old daughter who has read the Patrick Mahomes Epic Athletes book for young kids at least 12 times, and so if I said anything different than that, she'd probably kick me out of the house. So if you have young kids, it's an excellent book too, by the way. So it's a book series of kind of autobiographies with a number of and it's called Epic Athletes, and they're written by Dan Wetzel. And so my kids love them.
That's great to know.
Though she does refuse to read the Tom Brady one, by the way. So she refuses to buy that one.
Good for her. Good for her. Okay, you can call on the next.
I will call on I'll call on Bill next.
Awesome. So I'm Bill Brandmeier. Once again, I'm excited to be here today. I'm a huge Chiefs fan, a Jayhawk fan, and I'm excited for the game this weekend. Just love the whole energy around any kind of playoff or championship drive, or just to watch either Final Four. The watching Georgia beat Alabama was just thrilling, and just super excited about how sports connects us as a city.
Did you already tell us what Sharewaves is for people who don't know?
No, I mean, I certainly would be able to do that. So the organization that I started 3 years ago with the help of Union Broadcasting and 810 WHB is called Sharewaves. And the idea is that we have access to their airwaves and use that access to help promote any nonprofit that is using sports to connect to kids. That has led us to develop our own programs where we are looking to help the community have better access to youth sports, and really focusing on under-resourced communities and their access to sports that are more expensive than what they would just normally get, either soccer or basketball. We love soccer and basketball too, so we support organizations that try to help kids with those sports too. Sharewaves has a 2022 plan for impact that includes using movement as the medicine kids need right now to connect, heal, and to kind of thrive back into life. We feel like the last 22 months of disconnection because of the restrictions placed on kids' lives have caused them to miss out on valuable aspects of life that normally help them develop, like connections, social connections, and physical activity, and really have impacted their mental health. And so there's a whole big push around the idea that we need to use movement as much as anything right now to help kids. And we're focused on that and really finding ways to help kids play games that they love. Jay, Dr. Jay.
Yeah, hey everybody. Jay Robertson. I work at Children's Mercy. Greg and I are colleagues in the sports medicine department. Yeah, I mean, my favorite sports teams, Royals, Chiefs, and grew up in Kansas City. I have no choice, and I'm also a Mizzou fan. So for a really long time, I had like the worst of all three worlds because we never won anything ever. And then all of a sudden, 2015, changed that, and now we got Mahomes, and I don't even know still kind of what to do with myself in terms of fandom. But I do have to call out Greg though. I don't know, your picture with you in the Royals jersey at your daughter's birthday party. I think you should claim the Royals just so that you can have that picture. I think that's one of the greatest pictures I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, you can claim the Chiefs too. You get them both. All right. I'm gonna call on Kayla.
Hello, my name is Kayla and I'm a physical therapist at Children's Mercy at Village West. So I work with, I have been working with pediatrics my entire career, specifically at Village West the past 4 years. This month is how long it's been open. And then I grew up in Iowa, so I did not have a professional organization to look up to for sports. So I went to Iowa State, so that would probably be my number one choice. But right now I could be a Chiefs fan.
'Tis the season.
yeah. That's what we were talking yesterday about, how it's fun when the players do like backflips, and the one guy was doing a cheerleader dance and that kind of thing, because I think that's when they're a dangerous team, is when they're having fun. So, Mackenzie?
Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie. I am a research assistant for the weighing in team, so I'm just sitting in on this call. To pick my favorite team, I grew up in Kansas, so like all of you, I love the Chiefs. I also watched a lot of professional tennis growing up, so he doesn't play anymore, but I was a huge Agassi fan. And I also liked Andy Roddick. Don't have any favorites right now, but I still follow it.
Great.
And
Thanks for representing tennis and getting us out of the football rut there.
yeah, and I'll pick Mitch to go next.
I'm Mitch. This is my first time on this meeting. I took over for Katie Wade. She handed it over to me. I'm the new league director at KC Crew, or adult rec league company here in Kansas City. So whoever said they can't find adult rec leagues to play in, let me know. I'll get you set up. And my favorite sports team, it has to be the Chiefs. Came to school here in Kansas City 7 years ago now at Rockhurst, and fell in love with them then, and rest is history.
Hey, Mitch, I saw you guys were doing a glow volleyball tournament at High V. That sounds so cool. Was that one of your ideas?
That was actually Katie's idea. So, yep, that is, I think, the second week in February. So we do a bunch of events. We do leagues throughout the season, and then we do volleyball events, cornhole tournaments, sand volleyball tournaments, you name it. We do sports and fun. So
Big fan of KC Crew.
And who is Veronica gone?
I don't think so. Yep. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica. I've been with Weighing In since October. I'm a Vista through AmeriCorps, and I'm doing my year of service here with the team. And I'm just sitting in on this call as well. My favorite sports team would probably have to be the Chiefs as well. I grew up in Kansas City.
I think M. Burns is the last person to be introduced or to introduce themselves.
Oh, good. I don't have to call on anyone. I'm Melissa Burns. Sorry, I was late, guys. I'm with the Whole Person Adaptive Sports with them. Just started with them in October as well. And I am unbiased. I have no favorite teams. I've lived overseas for a few years as well. And the time difference just made it impossible to kind of keep up with everyone. So now that I'm back in Kansas City, Missouri, you have to, support your team, support the Chiefs. So.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm just going to share my screen just for a second. Just to kind of, I'm using it as my notes as much as anything. Can you see it okay? The slides there? Okay. So as I mentioned, in 2021, we developed the 8 strategies, and I counted them this morning, 29 tactics to support the strategies for the sports sector. And you can find all of those strategies and tactics on our website under the sports page. And maybe Bryce, you can throw that link in the chat for us when you get a second. I counted 6 meetings that we had over the course of the year. And then we also, most of us, I think, participated in the National Youth Sports Strategy Kansas City workshop in July, which was several hours, and it really aligned well with what we were doing. And at the end of all of that, it was clear that sports play a unique and powerful role in our lives. From aligning the spirit of a community like the Chiefs are doing right now, to creating opportunities for physical activity through youth and adult sports. I saw just something the other day where Nick Saban, Jerry West, and a bunch of other West Virginia athletes wrote a letter to their senator supporting voting rights, and so sports can also align for things outside of sports. And so there are immense opportunities for sports. There are also immense barriers for sports participation as well. And so I think our strategies and tactics that we develop really kind of run the gamut of all of those things. So now we're to the implementation phase of this process. And what we've tried to do, and this is far from set in stone, but what we decided on in the last meeting, the November meeting, was to initially form 3 implementation groups. And most of the strategies aligned with those 3 implementation groups. And so that's really the #1 goal of today's meeting, is to to join some of these implementation groups. We'll do that in just a second. However, we did have just one piece of housekeeping that we wanted to address. And I'll kind of hand it over to Bryce here, because he's been leading this work with the KC Physical Activity Plan. So.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, so in the past couple of months, we've been trying to update our logos for each of the sectors. For a while, I think our infrastructure logo had been the most up-to-date based on considering all levels of access and abilities and being as inclusive as possible for people of all abilities. So we figured we would do that with sport, and then we had some conversations about the other sectors. So I just went ahead and updated everything. So I tried to add one aspect to be a little bit more inclusive. For each of these logos, we have 2 options for sport. So these are the 2 different logos. They're both updated from our original. And we just wanted to run this by you, get your guys' thoughts. If you think they both look okay, or if you have a preference on which one you would prefer, let us know. You can vote A or B in the chat. And then if you have any suggestions for being more inclusive of other abilities or other types of people, feel free to place that in the chat as well. Or you can even send us, an email or a personal message after this for what you think those adjustments should be.
Yeah, and I think that latter part is probably most on point. These 2 logos are pretty similar to each other. There's pretty minor changes. But if there's other things that you think we should add or change, that's definitely something we're interested in. So again, throw this in the chat if you want. Or if you want to do it kind of off the record or not within this setting, you can just email either Bryce or myself. Then in addition to the logos here, there's a change that Bryce has been working on. This ultimately will go on the cover of the 2nd edition of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. But also this is the prominent banner when you go to our website. And so this will go up on the website sooner than the 2nd edition will be released. And to be honest, probably most people will see this more than they see the actual report itself. So maybe Bryce, do you just want to walk through some of the things that you may have updated or changed on this versus before?
Sure. Yeah. So we, this is going to be the banner that we use on our website. Like Robin said, this is going to be the cover to like the actual plan. So it's going to be the first thing people see and, associate us with. So it's definitely important. So our original version of this had basically the same characters. This lady pushing her baby in the stroller, this girl doing yoga in the background. We have a physician over here waving the public, somebody sitting on a bench, some people hanging out using the public walking space, and then somebody walking in the back. So we wanted to be a little bit more inclusive of all abilities again. So I added in this blind person with his lead dog in the background. We put somebody with prosthetic legs that you can run with. You've probably seen some people in the Olympics and people in the public with these. I can't remember if they're called spring blades or what the correct term for them is. And then we have somebody in the background in a wheelchair playing a game with a little kid. So some subtle changes, but just trying to put a little bit of a spin on this. And with that being said, all of this can be changed. I just use Adobe Illustrator. So we can make things larger, make them smaller. If you think that somebody should be, we try to obviously mix genders, mix races, mix the type of people, activities that they're doing, and be inclusive of all abilities. So the same thing that we did with the other logos. If you guys have any advice on this or any changes that you think should be made, let us know.
Bryce, my only comment would be to have a kid bigger, like maybe some kids or a kid.
Sure. More front and center.
More front and center, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Makes
playing
sense.
catch or, kicking a soccer ball or something.
Cool. Good call. Anything else you guys think? And I know this is kind of a pixelated version, so you can't see it too well in the background.
And I guess it goes without saying, but I'll say it specifically that these can be changed at any time. So even, this is not your single opportunity to provide feedback to this. If, you're looking at it in 2 months from now and say, hey, I think this would be a great idea, just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
then Kayla chimed in and said, can you include a kid with, or a child with a disability? Good call. We did that with some of the other sector logos, and I think it would be helpful to include that here as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So now we can, sorry, screens. Okay. So here are the 3 implementation groups that we decided on in the November meeting. Now they're not fully encompassing of all that I think that this group may want to try to accomplish, but I think it's a good start. And again, just like everything else, none of this is written in stone. We can update these at any time. We can stop a group if there's not a lot of movement or interest, and we can add something else if something new emerges that we think is more important. But this is kind of the starting point that I think that captured most of what we were interested in. And the 3 groups we're generally calling alliance, access, and advocacy. And so the alliance implementation group is focused on creating and identifying a unifying body to create standards, evaluate, and organize surveillance data on such things as sports participation. So this kind of strategies 26, 27, and 29 from the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan generally fall under this group. The next group is the access group, and this is focused on increasing access to funding and also access to sports participation. And that can include lots of different things, including focusing on physical literacy, sports sampling, unstructured sports participation, and free play. And so this aligns with most generally strategy 23, though you can argue that just about every strategy fits in here in some way, shape, or form. The final group is the advocacy group. And this group is focused on sports education and sports promotion through storytelling, telling, and sharing messages. And this is strategy 24, 25, and 28. And this, again, advocacy can mean a lot of different things. There are some very much promotional things that could fall under this, such as like the mass media campaign that we've been talking about in the other group, So promoting just sports participation. And then there's also other aspects, and I can't remember exactly what strategy it is, whether it's 24, 5, or 28, that's more focused on like educating sports officials and parents about non-competitive aspects of sports participation, and safe sports and things like that. So these generally are the three, these are the three groups that we talked about, and the strategies where they generally align. Any question about these groups and what might be included in them at this point? Well, I think what our goal is for the rest of today would be to self-assign ourselves to these groups that we might be interested in participating in. And I just kind of made up a quick checklist on what I think are kind of the priority items as we set up these implementation groups. So the first is figuring out how often they want to meet. We have this structure in place for other sectors, and the groups meet on a very variable schedule. So for example, there's a group within the healthcare sector where they were trying to get a project launched. And so they were meeting every week or every other week for about a 2-month period to get the project ready to go. And then now they're on a monthly basis now that the project is that the main steps are completed. This will probably be determined exactly by what the group is trying to do. And if there's goals and things like that, time goals. Who wants to help organize the meeting? So weighing in is the backbone organization, which means we provide logistical support for things like sending out evites if that's what the group wants to use, setting up Zoom links if that's what the group wants to do, taking notes, things like that. So weighing in will do those things, but it's always good to have 1 or 2 or 3 people kind of serve as like a de facto leader of the group to kind of make sure that the group is staying on task and that things are moving forward. And this can happen organically, or we can kind of invite someone to be a leader of an implementation group. Probably most important is what should the priorities be? And these priorities, I think, will kind of come about on their own, based on what is feasible and where there is interest. But it's always good for me, and I do this, several times a week. I go back to the original strategies and tactics that we already developed, just to remind myself, this exactly is what we want to do. So we may be doing some of these easy projects initially, but we also need to keep a long-term goal for whatever this strategy might be. Who is missing? These groups, this is where the groups really start to grow. I've seen this in the other sections. As we start doing things and action starts happening, other people want to be involved, and we start asking other people to be involved. So who are those people that we might want to get involved? And then the last piece is something that is not necessary, but it helps us at Weighing In coordinate things, is we have a very brief sign up for the groups where you just put your name and your email address in, and you pick a group that you want to be a part of. And that helps us create, email distribution lists. And so that link is here, and we'll put that in the chat as we get going. Any questions about any of these things? Yeah, Bill.
So I love this, and I think it's critically important that determining how much we need to meet. And I want to put, I want to be involved in every single one of these groups. I've given them all a lot of thought, and it fits into my role as the leader of an organization that's trying to do all these things and into our plan for 2022. I think for me, the most important piece of this is what the priorities should be, and that I think we are missing a lot of people. I love that we have 12 people participating in this meeting right now. I know that 2 or 3 of the people that are participating are auditing them and just kind of getting a feel for what these meetings are like. And I'd really appreciate that, the different members, the new members of Wayne Inn being a part of this today and helping us think through stuff. But when we met yesterday as a sector meeting, you talked about 3 overarching goals for the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan. And then, when we start thinking of ourselves as the sports sector, I think it's always important for us to know that we did spend a long time understanding our strategies, but ultimately this whole thing is about Kansas City physical activity across the board. And so even in our subgroups, as we try to work ourselves into, helping understand youth sports, understanding how to put an emphasis in changing the landscape of youth sports, when we understand that we're trying to open up access to all kinds of different opportunities for kids and for adults to access sports, and innovative ways of challenging Kansas City to be more physically active through sports, and then really advocating through any kind of digital or other types of traditional content that we might create that would tell the story of how sports can transform a community with activity and physical activity. That we always are thinking about this as we are a part of a whole, that there are 11 other sectors that are also working towards the same types of goals. And so if you would, Robin, would you spend just a little bit of time talking about the 3 major, Kansas City physical activity goals, and then that, kind of feed that down into the, as you said, making sure that we understand our strategy and tactics?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks for bringing that up. And maybe I'll ask, while I'm doing that, if Bryce, if you could get the plan from the website and put it in the chat, and Mackenzie, if you could put the reg cap for the funding and surveillance groups in the chat as well, while I'm kind of describing them. So yeah, Bill is exactly right. The key thing, let me stop my share real quick. One of the key pieces of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan is that we're not working in silos, that everything is working towards one collective goal, and that is to create safe and equitable opportunities for physical activity in our region. So all of the 10 sectors are all doing that within their own sector. And then within overarching of all those things, we feel that it's important that there are overarching goals that really kind of connect all of them and that are critical for all of them to succeed. And it's in the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan, which Bryce just placed in the chat. It's early in the document. One of the first handfuls of pages has the overarching priorities, but they are: number 1, increase local surveillance, or excuse me, local funding for physical activity projects. So we're all community organizations focused on Kansas City. We get the most of the funding for the projects that we do from local funders. And as anyone who's operated in this space, it can be a real challenge to get funding for some of the projects related to physical activity in our region. And I think that the funders don't properly recognize the need within our community and the number of organizations that are capable of doing this work. And so what we're trying to do is get a coalition, a specific coalition just focused on how best we can communicate to these local funders the need for more funding within our region. The second overarching priority is regular comprehensive surveillance of physical activity metrics. And maybe Bryce, if you could throw the report card in the chat real quick. So the only way we can gauge where there are needs and where there are progress in physical activity in our region is if we assess it through surveillance networks. And there are some really strong surveillance pieces in our region, but there are still big gaps. And we created a report a little over a year ago in the form of a report card that talked about those gaps and the current state of physical activity for our region. So this surveillance network subgroup is going to be how can we improve on that and fill in those gaps in the surveillance network. You can learn more about that in that report Bryce just pasted in the chat. And then the last piece is reporting on our progress and the gaps through a regular report that is the report card. So we did a report card in 2020, and our plan is to update that in about 2 years or so. So that's not going to be an active group at this moment, just because we don't have a whole lot of reporting to do. But the first two overarching priorities are going to be active initiatives that we take across the board in this current year. How did I do, Bill? Did I fill in some of those gaps? Yeah, you're muted.
Yes, excellent. Yeah,
Okay,
that's exactly what I was looking for. And then the other piece that I would say is that we need more people. And I don't think I did a good job of recruiting people to today's meeting. I will do a better job next time we meet to pull more people that have a passion for sports and physical activity, understand what's happening. We'll get the right people here in this meeting. Not to slight all the people that showed up today. I really appreciate everyone being here. I think we should have, a goal of having 8 to 10 people on each one of these subgroups, if possible. I don't know how the other sectors are doing with populating their subgroups, but really this is one of those things that the more people in the boat that are rowing in the same direction, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a couple people reached out to me and said that they couldn't come today just because of various commitments, but so there are other people I think are observing from a distance at the moment, but like I said, once we start doing things, I think we're going to get more people and we can do some targeted recruitment. So what I think we'll do now is we will open up the breakout rooms and you guys can self-select on where to go. And today it's going to be a little bit challenging because all the groups are meeting at the same time. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like Bill who want to participate in multiple groups. And so you can move back and forth today between the groups. And you can also sign up in that survey for multiple groups. And so if you're in, say, the Alliance group today, but you want to also be in the advocacy one, if you fill out that survey and let us know you want to be in both, then we can, we'll make sure you're on the distribution list. And then I'm guessing that when the next meetings are scheduled, they won't all be at the same time. So Bryce and I are going to be hopping around rooms today to help answer questions, but any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? And if not, Bryce, do you know your...
Yeah, I'm going to open all 3 breakout rooms up right now, and you guys can pick which one you want to go into. And like Robin said, you can jump between multiple. So, all right, so they just opened up and should be able to select which one you guys would like to go to. Let's see.
And just to clarify, we won't come back to the large group right now. So we'll communicate all of the end results of these discussions through our newsletter that we'll send out next week. Okay. All right, we'll see you in the breakout rooms.
All right, I'll go to advocacy, Robin.
Okay. I'll go to Alliance first off.
Sweet. And then Mackenzie and Veronica, if you want to go to Access, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
And you guys can hop around too if you'd like. And then just a reminder for, okay, you guys got it, cool. All right. Awesome. So we got a good little group. Thanks for hopping into advocacy, you guys. So who do we got? We got Mitch, we got Kayla, and we got Melissa. Great. That's a good group.
Sorry, and I hopped out of the room before I heard you explain. You can join multiple groups.
Yeah, so like we can have a conversation in the advocacy group, and if you feel like it's a good fit, even if you still feel like it's a good fit, you can hop between like multiple to get a good sense of like kind of where you want to participate in the future. This is just kind of like an initial meet and greet for each of the people in these groups. So yeah, feel free to hop in between multiple. You can let me know if you like want to go to Access. I can also like reassign you. It's pretty easy in Zoom. So cool. So like Robin said, there's 3 strategies that directly align with what we have in mind for this advocacy group. So just to kind of review, this would be a subgroup that's focused on sport education, sport promotion through storytelling, and like sharing our message. So being advocates for these athletes, putting the components in their hands to be successful. So for example, Mitch and KC Crew, it's pretty obvious what they do to to increase opportunity and put these opportunities in front of adults with recreational sports and other opportunities like that. Now I think a large opportunity for this subgroup is going to be some cross-sector involvement. So another new sector of the Kansas City Physical Activity Plan is the mass media sector, and they're actually in their development phase. So they finished prioritizing their strategies like a month ago, and they're going to be moving on to their tactic prioritization next week. So they're kind of a step behind on the sports sector, but kind of right on our tails. So I think it's going to work up pretty well to where we can play off of what their strategies and tactics are. And you guys will be able to review those once I add them to the website in it's probably going to be the next month or so. But they're really big on obviously like the promotion and the marketable aspects of promoting, physical activity and movement. So I think that would fall directly in line with this advocacy subgroup. So I think that's definitely something we can play off in the future. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen. And if you guys have any ideas for like the direction of this or like any, action items or you think, or I guess like things that your organization could either implement or you want to work on and you need assistance or you need funding on, this subgroup is going to kind of be the space to identify that and determine what direction we want to go. And you guys can basically, facilitate that direction. I think a good place to maybe like brainstorm for us might be reviewing the 3 strategies of our group that, we think some of our action might fall in line with. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and we can take a look at those strategies. All right. So I'm going to go to our website here. We'll go to sport. Okay, and I think the 3 that align really well are going to be strategy 24, 25, and let's see, 28. So let's start with 24. Sports organizations should adopt policies and practices that promote physical activity, health, participant growth, and development of physical literacy. So this is kind of the promotion piece of this. We also have our priorities here. And as you'll notice, when we say our overarching strategies that we have, and then tactics below for how to achieve those strategies. Priorities and tactics are kind of like interchangeable words for us. I think we're moving the route to change priorities to tactics, so it's a little bit more streamlined. Just kind of a side note for you guys. So there's actually a lot of tactics that we decided to keep for this strategy. So feel free to go to our website and you guys can review these and see if it falls in line with any of what your organizations are doing, anything that's needed in the Kansas City community. And then as we review these strategies, let's think about like who might be a good lead for this subgroup too. Like if any of you think that this falls directly in line with what you do with your organization, I guess like what you're focused on as an individual and you'd like to lead this subgroup. Like Robin said, it kind of depends on whoever's leading this, how often this group is meeting, when they meet, what they're focused on, etc. So let's see, strategy 25 is coaches, game officials, parents, and caregivers should create safe and inclusive environments for sports participation that promote physical activity and health for youth and adult participants. So the end of this strategy is kind of similar to 24, but it's a little bit more broad when you consider the context at the beginning of it. So this is kind of the creation of inclusive environments and inclusive spaces. So, I think this kind of, falls in line with the focus of Melissa and, what her group or organization does with the whole person. And then there's also 4 tactics that support this strategy. Let's see what some of these are. Reward sports organizations that foster an inclusive environment. They focus on underserved sports programs. Oh, okay, so inclusive of groups that are underserved by traditional sports programs. Gotcha. Okay, so also under this strategy is establish pricing models and season timeline. That's timelines that encourage multi-sport participation. That's been definitely a hot topic with our group in the past, encouraging athletes to be involved in multiple sports before they decide to specify on one before college or whatever level they're at. It seems like there's more and more stories coming out with elite athletes that, associate a lot of their success with the fact that they were multi-sport athletes in the past. Identify and disseminate evidence-based practices that prioritize moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity for all participants during practices and games. So just to make sense of this, this is like trying to utilize downtime at practices to make sure that, heart rates are still elevated. We're using activity to serve as actual physical activity that's going to benefit young athletes' health instead of, sitting on the bench during a practice. Everybody can be involved in a different form or facet. And then the 4th one is using frameworks from already developed organizations. So for example, the US Olympic Committee has an American development model that we could use to support this strategy. And I don't know if we've said this in the past, but any of these tactics and these strategies, they can be changed and adjusted. And I think that's the unique part of these subgroups. We wanted to form the subgroups because sometimes it seems like we don't have enough time to meet as a large sports sector and get down to the nitty gritty details of what needs to be done, what needs to be planned for there to actually have action take place in the community. And with that being said, once we start getting into those details, we can start to adjust our plan, our tactical approach, and our strategies if we feel like we need to. So we trust all of your guys's, expertise. That's why we want you on these calls and to be in these subgroups. So let's check out our 3rd strategy. Strategy 28. Sports organizations should ensure that sports programs are conducted in a manner that minimizes risk of sports-related injuries and illnesses. So that's advocating for safety. It kind of makes sense with, our current time period with COVID, not just injuries, but, dealing with a public health crisis, making sure that these teams and organizations are running fluidly and staying safe with, COVID precautionary pieces. So what falls under this for tactics would be establishing policies and practices that put a priority on health and safety of participants, education of parents, athletes, coaches, and teachers about the signs and symptoms of sports injuries and conditions. And then the encouragement of importance of collaboration with medical professionals to ensure safe outcomes during play. So as I look more at this strategy, I think this also tends to fall under the alliance piece. I think that this one would definitely be supported by like our Children's Mercy staff. Jay and Greg in our alliance subgroup right now, there's definitely some linkages between this strategy and advocacy and alliance. And David, did you happen to just come from the alliance subgroup, or were you in the access?
I don't think I thought I was in the access, but I think we disbanded and I'm jumping over.
Gotcha.
I got reallocated, so I'm just
Nice.
listening over here.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us. Let's see what these other last two are. Encouragement of encouraging the importance of collaboration with medical professionals to ensure safe outcomes. Okay. And then ensuring that sports equipment, uniforms, and playing surfaces are checked for safety and best conditions. Cool. And you guys are more than welcome to go and scroll through these strategies. If there's another one that you think falls in line with our advocacy group, feel free to, let us know. I'm sure there's a lot that we're not seeing as we kind of make these comparisons and develop these subgroups. But I think the next thing that, we kind of want to develop is who's going to be a good lead for this subgroup? How often should we meet? And then obviously determining which strategies fall under what our focuses are going to be as we develop those focuses. So is there anything that you guys are currently doing, or your organizations that are doing, that kind of fall in line with how our advocacy subgroup is defined? And with that being said, here's kind of our initial description that we have for this group as well. A subgroup focused on sport education, sport promotion through storytelling and sharing messages. And that's not concrete. That was just kind of the initial description that I developed based on kind of our strategies that fall in line with this. So
talk really briefly. So through the whole person, we have our own sports team. So I help coach and coordinate our wheelchair tennis team. We have power chair soccer, which we'll do a couple different sessions with this coming year. And then we actually just had the person that was in charge of ASGKC leave. So I'm going to take over that until we either find somebody new or we can kind of allocate that, like the services that offers differently. So with that, my big push for this year, and we actually have a roundtable tomorrow if anybody wants to join that as well. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that, but I want to go out to businesses that have sports organizations going on or some types of things, and then just ask if they would be willing to include people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the big things. And then just adding partners through ASGKC and things like that. But when I read through what your strategies are, the language is different to me, at least what we're doing. So even though we have sports teams out in the public, and yes, we're advocating them, and I'm advocating for them to be a part of USTA more, to be in competitions more, to be more visible, et cetera, when I hear the words policy and there's something else in there that I was like, oh, that sounds like a lot of writing. So yeah. I'm not sure if that's what the goal is it to put something on paper and then kind of backtrack and say, this is what we're doing to meet those standards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it doesn't, you're right. Sometimes though, like that type of word, it can be intimidating because it signifies the fact that like you're trying to do what Robin just presented on, gain funding, collect data, report on that data. That's definitely an important piece for, for these subgroups, and then supporting these strategies. But I think for like the work that you're doing, when it's happening on the ground, the action's happening quick, you're making those connections with people to be more inclusive of people of all abilities and provide, those opportunities to do so, that can happen quicker, and it happens with those connections. So I think as you kind of described your initial thoughts with strategies 24, 25, and 28, now that I think about it more, I think that strategy 23 should also fall under this. So maybe this makes a little bit more sense for what the whole person provides to the community, and what they're gonna, try to continue to do growing in the future with, opportunity to be more inclusive of people of all abilities. So this one is leaders in multiple sectors should expand access to recreational spaces and quality sports programming while focusing on eliminating disparities in access based on race, ethnicity, gender, disability, socioeconomic status, geography, age, and sexual orientation. So
Yeah, absolutely. Though, yes, that makes more sense, and it's more aligned with what we're already doing. And then it can
Great.
also include our blind programming. I mean, when I think about what I'm not running into, but just something that I'm seeing, the disparities between even disability. So we had a grant that said, get data on how many SCI consumers you have that are participating in tennis. Well, that's great. We might have 8 people, but 3 of them are SCI. So then do we lose grant funding because we do have people that are participating, but they don't fall into this category? So yeah, that's why I say when it breaks down to writing policies and then fulfilling those, are we really reaching a broader range of public and, inclusion and all that type of stuff? So that's just what I get nervous with.
Gotcha. No, that's a really good point. And I don't think I would have thought about it from that lens. That's why we'd like to have you guys on the call. Yeah, as I look at this more, this strategy seems like it also supports, KC Crew and what Mitch is doing as well. Prioritize community-based affordable forms of organized play, such as in-town leagues, continue offering these formats into and beyond adolescence. Exactly. Free play, we focus on that a lot, or reduced play. We've had conversations about this in the past, where sometimes if you make the play free, people just aren't gonna show up if it's an organized event or league. Instead, just make it like very affordable for these participants.
Yeah, we do the weekly pickup basketball and stuff like that. So people aren't locked into 6
Cool.
weeks times, but
Yeah, is that at Hy-Vee, Mitch?
it is at Hy-Vee on Friday mornings right now is the only time we're doing it. We used to offer down in Overland Park as well, but right now we're only focusing on Hy-Vee and then expanding it. So
Gotcha. Yeah, those opportunities are sometimes a good gateway to get people interested and meet some new people at an event, and then kind of make that commitment to doing it once a week or being involved in a league.
Yep.
So they definitely have a time and a place, that's for sure. And then the last one is incorporate sports activities into before and after school programming. So this is kind of there's a lot in this strategy, and I think that there could even be more tactics that are added to this strategy, and taking a creative lens to identify where people could be more active, where we could fill those gaps, and where the gaps are, like who needs to be helped in this case. When we look at the definition of this subgroup, who needs to be advocated for? So I think that falls in line with how Melissa was kind of describing what they do, and kind of where Mitch is coming from. Who should we advocate for, and then how can we do this? So I think that's kind of like the gist of this subgroup. If it sounds like something you guys would like to continue your involvement with for the subgroup, feel free. And we can definitely have more conversations on who else should be involved, and then ultimately who should lead this subgroup. So Bill, I don't know if you have anybody in mind, or if anybody pops into your head.
Yeah, and I don't know, I came a little late. The Alliance group was just Jay and I, and we had a great meeting about what we're going to try to do there. But the idea of the advocacy group for me is promoting stories throughout the community where sports is impacting individuals in a positive way. I think that including the promotion of all the strategies, promotion of all the work that we did last year gives us so many different directions to go to advocating how sports is such a positive influence on our city, on our culture, on what we do. Having access to someone like Dave Hayden, who is at KSHB, having access to Sports Talk Radio 810 WHB, having access to the different outreaches that happen at Children's Mercy Hospital, or different organizations that are involved, like the Whole Person, who they impact and reach out to, gives us a broad network to be able to push stories out into the community. Part of what I want this subgroup to think about is how are we going to identify what the stories are that we want to tell that support the work that we're doing, and then how are we going to tell those stories? Either are we going to create a podcast? Are we going to create blogs? Are we going to create digital content somehow? Are there organizations out there that want to put their name on some of the stuff that we're doing to help promote? Do we go out to all the different youth sports leagues and say, we're doing this and we need their help? All of those things need to be a part of the discussion around this piece of advocacy, and then incorporate that into the other sectors that are doing some of the same work.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, a lot of what you said kind of fell in line with what we talked about before you hopped into this subgroup. No, it's perfect. I was just mentioning the fact that the mass media sector is just got through their strategy prioritization process, and they're getting more into their tactics now. And, obviously you and David have a lot of experience with media and promotion and marketing. So that's definitely going to fall directly in line with, the purpose of this advocacy group. And just to kind of summarize things, and we'll try to get you guys out here early, about 15 minutes early. We'll end in a couple minutes here. As we've been talking through these and talking with everybody in this group, Melissa, I think that it might be helpful for you to maybe hop on an access subgroup call as well. I think for the Whole Person, you'd be able to bring a lot to that group. Just to remind you guys of what the access group would be, it is focused on increasing access to funding and improving sport participation, increasing physical literacy, sport sampling, and unstructured sport participation and free play. And I know the funding piece, maybe doesn't directly fall in line with your group, Melissa, but I think that, increasing participation and the access for people that might not have it or might have a disability, that definitely would make sense. And there might be a lot of, branching items that go back and forth from access to advocacy. And what we'll do in the future with these subgroups is we can, decide on if these, groups should meet together in the future, if it should be an access and advocacy group, if we want to keep them separate and then just like meet once in a while, or a good way to like exchange the information that we develop in both of these subgroups. But yeah.
And is that what the Alliance group will do? Is that kind of the combination of those, or is that going to be a completely separate group?
It would be a completely separate group. But like I said, this was just kind of our initial iteration of how we thought it should be split up.
And I can tell you a little bit about what the Alliance group talked about. It was just, like I said, Jay and I and Robin, but we are going to work with Jessica Lublau from the Kansas City Sports Commission. We are going to meet in 2 weeks and discuss who we would ideally want around a table to talk about the transformation of youth sports from one of pay for play to one of inclusion and access, open access and participation, and really promote sports in areas that are hard to access. And Melissa, having someone from the whole person on the alliance, I mean, as a part of the overall Youth Sports Alliance would be, I mean, critical to our success. So, but the subgroup is about planning the invitation, planning that meeting, planning the invitation, getting the right people around the table. And that's what the Alliance subgroup is going to focus on over the next, 2 to 3 weeks as we start getting the right people who want to help plan that meeting. Then we'll have an Alliance group that is identified, that is not, it's not really, the goal of that group would be to bring the whole community together around youth sports and what's happening in youth sports and how youth sports has become a pay-for-play model and eliminated access because of your zip code, because of your race, because of your disability, because of all the different things that eliminate open access to kids.
Yeah, and I
That
think a
makes
big
sense.
focus of that group as well is going to be, that unifying body to create the standards and,
Yes.
do the steps for evaluation and acquiring surveillance data like Robin was talking about. So I think that approach that they're probably going to end up taking is seeing what's available on a national stage and maybe locally as well. And, either identify a structure that they can follow and create that body, or identify somebody locally that's already slightly doing that, and maybe can be, adjusted a little bit to fit what Kansas City truly needs. So cool. Well, if you guys have any other questions about the subgroups, feel free to, email Robin, email myself, reach out to Bill. These are still in development, and, we're still kind of brainstorming how these are going to function. And like I said, we want to figure out if it makes sense for somebody to, lead each of these groups. They can coordinate the meetings and such. And then, we want to get to those action steps. We want things to be happening in the community to improve access, to form an alliance and to advocate for people that need it the most to get moving and enjoy sports. So, but for today, we appreciate all your guys's thoughts and commitment to this group. And we are looking forward to the next meeting. So we will reach out to you guys. We'll send you probably another MailChimp newsletter that kind of looks like this, with kind of a breakdown of what we talked about, and then a game plan for the future. So we might meet again as a large group and then do breakout sessions. Otherwise, we'll see kind of as we brainstorm a little bit more if we want to designate times for each of these groups to meet. So awesome. Well, we appreciate your guys' involvement. Have a good rest of the day, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mitch, see ya. Thanks, Melissa. See you, David. Thanks. See you, Kayla.
Hey, Bryce.
Hey, what's up?
We